just to keep the momentum going. So Catholic women, fantastic. Thank you all so much for making time to be with us today. Today's session is really just to enlighten us on some of the legalities surrounding our everyday life. Even as we go in and out of our homes, there are definitely certain things that concern us that have been pronounced in the law. And it will be very educative and insightful for us to know what our rights are, what's the position of the law on these everyday things that we are involved in. Definitely not doing this alone. We are privileged to have in our midst distinguished legal professionals who definitely have the requisite experience based on their practice to share with us the position of the law on, like I said, our everyday issues. So without much ado, I'll just introduce them to take their seats upstairs, and then we can delve into the conversation right away. So we are privileged to have in our midst Mrs. Adelaide Bene Prempeh. She's the founding and managing partner of BNP Associates, a law firm in Accra. She has 25 years of experience in civil, corporate, and commercial law. She is qualified as a barrister in both England and Wales and Ghana. Her expertise cover telecommunications, cybersecurity, international family law. Beyond the practice, she also lectures at the Ghana School of Law and is a certified data protection supervisor. Help me welcome up here Mrs. Adelaide Bene Prempeh. You're welcome. Okay. We are also very privileged to have in our midst Mrs. Sarah Anku. It's enough? Oh, no, I can't do this to you at all. Let me say something small. Let me add something small. She's a senior partner at Anku. Is wrong? Hey. You just don't want me to say anything. But what I can say is that she has all the experience that we need to enrich our conversation today. We are also very privileged to have in our midst our very own Mrs. Bridget Kunedu Afudo. She's a legal expert in the energy sector, serving as the legal manager at Senate Energy Limited. She's a partner at Afrimore Advisors, and her experience include energy, environmental law, corporate, commercial law, and employment law. Thank you so much, distinguished women, for making time to be with us today. Hopefully we can have a very enriched, engaging, and interactive session. So the topic for today is women's legal rights in marriage, family, and property. Before we zoom in, it will be good to know what your expectations are. So I'll take expectations from just two people before we delve into the conversation, so that at the end of the day, we are sure that we have met the expectations. Because I'm sure as you're coming here, there's some questions lingering in your head that you want answers to. So who will volunteer? Two people, just two. Oh, two people. Just tell us what your expectations are. Madam?
The talk will give us the question, please.
Okay. But it'll be good to know what you come here with. Probably you have a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Or we should start the conversation first. Hey, nobody wants to share. Hi. Do you have any expectations? Anything to share?
have much expectation per se, but I want to be enlightened about the legalities that women are supposed to know concerning their responsibilities and their rights. Yes, sir.
So I also want to know about property acquisition in marriage, how to register them. Let's say if you have to, like to be in the form of a partnership, or you can register it on your own, bearing your spouse's name. So I want to know all those things.
Thank you very, very much for sharing. Hopefully at the end of the day, we'll even exceed your expectations. Okay, so I'll be your moderator for today. My name is Irene Ali Derry, and we'll start the conversation with a couple of practical scenarios, and then they would share the position of the law on those topics. When we are done, we'll have a Q&A session. So even as we go, if you have any questions, kindly note them down, and then at the Q&A session, you'll be given the opportunity to ask them. Right? So are we good to go? Yeah. Catholic women, unity and peace. Catholic women, fantastic. So our first set of questions, you're welcome again. You're all looking very beautiful, by the way. So our first set of questions will be on marriage and family rights. So practically in our everyday situation, in marriages, some people would go through what we normally call the engagement. So there's Amma and Kofi. Kofi proposes to Amma, and Kofi takes his people to go and see Amma's family. Now, right after that, in most cases, some people will just start living as husband and wife, cooking, taking care of the children, and basically performing wifely duties. Some may go the extent of having an engagement ceremony, others may not. Now, let's start with Bridget. What really is the position of the law for women who just probably end at the engagement level and they don't go beyond that? Does the law consider this a legally valid marriage? And what are generally the types of marriages that are recognized in Ghana?
Okay, so to answer that question, typically what we call engagements is actually a traditional marriage ceremony. So in other laws of Ghana, it is fully legitimate, it is legal, it's a marriage, and it is recognized under the Marriages Act, under Part 1. So if you have a customary marriage at home where two families come together, there are witnesses, the man and the woman don't even have to be present. We have all seen ceremonies like that. They can be outside the country and it is done. So long as there are witnesses, two families come together, there's the exchange of wine or drink, schnapps. There's an exchange of some kind of property. So you realize that in the event of divorce, we tend to return the drinks. There's an exchange of property. Then we can say that there's a valid customary law marriage. You can proceed to change the form of that, because the thing with customary law marriages, it is potentially polygamous. That means that it can change from just a man and a woman to a man and two women, or 3 or 4. So if you want to change that form, then the law allows you to go under Part 3 of the Marriages Act for you to come under ordinance or Christian marriage, where you change the form from potentially polygamous to monogamous. You may decide not to. You may decide to register the customary law marriage. If you do, fine. If you don't, the law still will allow a judge to give you whatever it is that is due you, once you can provide evidence that there was a marriage. So I have mentioned customary law marriage, I've mentioned ordinance or Christian, and that's monogamous. And then we have also the Mohammedans. They can marry up to 4 women, and they can also register it if you want to, but you don't have to. So those are the forms of marriages, and usually we find us saying engagements, but it's actually a traditional marriage. It's legitimate, it's full. It can end there if you want to, or you can change the form.
Thank you very much. So 3 types of marriages: traditional, the Christian, and then the Islamic or Mohammedan marriage. Now, under the law, what are the distinguishing differences between the 3?
For instance, so the act was compiled from 1880, so at the time, and you can imagine in Ghana, we only had the customary law marriage, and a man could have more than one wife. Then comes Christianity, and it's supposed to be one man, one woman. So that's where it became monogamous marriages started to look like it would be Christian. If you weren't going to be Christian, then why would you go under that? So customary law marriage is where we do it traditionally, we do it at home, we do it with family, typical customary law marriage, and we call it potentially polygamous. It's not by force that the man will marry, but he can. And if he does, he hasn't breached any law. And then I've mentioned the Mohammedans or Islamic, where they can marry up to 4 women under the law. And then the monogamous or ordinance or Christian, where it is 1 woman, 1 man. And typically you'd have it held in church. Except, of course, you go under special license under the monogamous. And even though you're having the traditional ceremony at home, you have somebody from the Registrar General's office there. I should have left that one for her because she used to do that. She's a marriage license officer, and the person will be present there and will let you sign. I'm sure all of us have seen that long sheet, the green and white one. So, for instance, St. James's Gazette is licensed to hold weddings, but typically your home is not. You can't have a valid ordinance marriage in your home, so to speak. So you need the presence of a marriage. You need to apply for it, and then you need the presence of the marriage officer to be there, and then they'll have you sign it for you to convert the customary law marriage that just occurred to a monogamous one. Otherwise, when we end there, it's just potentially polygamous, and he can marry another woman if he wants to.
I'm sure at this point we are curious to know, so what happens if I am married traditionally and later my husband decides to marry another woman under the ordinance? We've already established that a traditional marriage is legally valid in Ghana. So what happens? I just wake up tomorrow, someone calls me, your husband is in the church getting married to another woman. What effect does that have on my traditional marriage to the man?
If you look at the marriage certificate, they'll ask you what the nature of it is, and then you typically find that you've written married under customary law. They tend to write that part, yes. To a certain extent, the man is already encumbered. Under customary law, he can't marry another. But then the thing is, he's coming under monogamous. So if he comes under monogamous, what does that mean? Does it mean that he's effectively divorcing his customary law wife? And that's not how it works. So if you were to hear something like that, you must by all means impede it, because he is married customarily. Unless, of course, he wants to marry the second woman customarily, then that would be a different conversation. But if he's going to attempt to convert theirs to monogamous, some people would hope that because of the conversion, their marriage would override the marriage of the first person. Yeah, but it starts to get unfair, and there's a sense of injustice about that. So typically, in any church or wherever, if you were able to prove that you are married to that person, they won't proceed with the ceremony.
So it means that once I'm home and I hear that, I should just get a bottle of malt, chilled malt, and just relax at home and know that whatever it is they are doing would not affect my marriage in any way.
Why would you want to create problems? Just go and stop it. It would be simpler to stop it than to deal with the legalities of
okay.
it after that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All
if
right.
you think you don't like what's going on,
I
except
should
you
go
like
to the
it,
church
go to the church. Just go
Okay.
to the back, find the pastor or the priest, and then tell him.
and let the pastor know that
Do
I
handle
mean
it there.
part of the okay. Please, I hope you are following the conversation. You have a question? You can't hear Bridget. Oh, okay.
Please, you didn't hear me at all.
Is it better?
You can't hear. Or the echo. I think there's a lot of echo.
Okay, maybe you can just run us through a very brief summary of everything we've. Okay.
Please, where did you hear up to? Can you hear? Where did you hear up to? So that I can take it up from there.
The part on the 3 types of marriages, did you get it? You did. Okay. The part where I asked her if the man is attempting, pardon me, they should move forward. Okay. Please, those at the back, can you kindly move forward so that it just helps? It's.
So I've already mentioned that we have customary law marriage. You hear that Islamic and then the ordinance or Christian, which is monogamous. And she was asking if you find out you are married to somebody customarily, you find out he's going to marry someone in church, going to have an ordinance or monogamous marriage. And I was explaining that it will not be valid because they don't have capacity. The man doesn't have capacity to enter into a marriage. That's what we'll say. He can't legally enter because he's already encumbered somewhere else. So it is better that you, in my opinion, I think it's better you stop the ceremony than have to deal with the aftermath of come to let them declare it null and void. It's better if you hear there's a marriage like that going on, just go to the back, talk to the pastor or the priest. They'll know what to do, rather than wait for the ceremony to end and then we now have to deal with legalities of it. It just gets messy. So if you hear about it, just stop it. It's easier that way.
Okay. Please, is it clearer now? Can we all hear? We can hear. Okay, fantastic.
Customary marriage. Yes, because customary law marriages are potentially polygamous, he can marry another woman. So except you have converted it to a monogamous marriage, any man you are married to customarily can marry another woman if he chooses to.
Is there a limit to the number? Or as many as he wants?
I think as many.
As
I'm
many
not
as
sure,
he
yeah,
wants.
as many.
Okay, fantastic. So let's twist the conversation a bit. For now, everything is peaceful. What if, in the very unfortunate circumstances, the marriage comes to an end? He actually does want to marry another woman, and so he wants the marriage to come to an end. What happens? What's the position of the law on the grounds for divorce, even as a woman, if at a point in time you are in a marriage and you want to opt out of it? What are the avenues for a woman to move out of a marriage?
Supposing you want to divorce your husband, or your husband wants to divorce you, under the Matrimonial Causes Act, there has to be a singular provision that the marriage is broken down beyond reconciliation. And evidence of that can be adultery, it can be desertion, it can be the person is putting up unreasonable behavior. You can't live with the person anymore. So these are, if you haven't lived as husband and wife for 2 years, ever since you got married, or for 5 years. These are some of the reasons that you can present to the court, and the court will allow a divorce. But you must prove ultimately that it has broken down beyond reconciliation.
Fantastic. As a church, we don't even promote divorce. So as much as possible, we are not even going to delve so much into that conversation, because from where we stand, we are promoting the institution of marriage. Now let's take the conversation a step further into property, ownership of property. And Auntie Sarah would be helping us here. In recent times, there have been controversial news that I don't want to get to. Richard Nee Ama and his wife and all those controversies. It raises the question, what really is the position of the spouses? Does marriage automatically convert property that is acquired during that marriage as marital property? So what I'm trying to find out is that, does the fact that we are married mean that once property has been acquired, then I automatically have a stake in it as a woman, especially considering the efforts women, or the role women play in our homes? What really is the position of the law on this?
Hello? You're working?
Yeah, please let us know if you can't hear her in good time, so that.
So the position of the law has changed over time. As it is now, it is not automatic that you have rights in a property that was acquired in the course of marriage. In the past, it started from the customary law position. So you realize in the 1959s, 1960s, we had the judges saying that by custom, when you acquire a property, when you are as a wife and a child, you are supposed to assist your husband to achieve the status of life, his stations in life. And whatever he achieves in the course of it will belong to him and him alone. Then came in the 76, 780 thereabout, and then the courts decided that, no, let's look at substantial contribution, because in some cases you will have some industrious women who actually financially support the man to come up with the properties. So the judges said, okay, if you have substantially contributed to the property, then you must have a share in the property. Then they moved on. In the, I think 2000, 2010, thereabout, the judges were of the opinion that it is not always the situation where the women will give physical contribution, cash, finances to the man. The women contribute in various ways. They take care of the home, they give the man the opportunity to go and earn the cash to build, to acquire the properties. The woman should not be left alone, so the woman should also acquire something, even if she didn't contribute financially. So the court said, okay, now equity. You have some equitable rights in the property, so you have a percentage of it. Then subsequently, they said, they came up with equality is equity. We are going to share it 50-50. So the moment you marry somebody, a man, as a woman, you marry a man, and you acquire, the man acquires a property in the course of the marriage, automatically you have 50% in it. That went on for some time. Now, the latest one is, does it mean that the moment you marry, you lose your constitutional right to acquire properties by yourself? Because the Constitution gives us the right to own properties by ourselves or in association with others. But if you have the law that is saying what we usually call the chempe 50-50, then it means that because I'm married, I cannot acquire any property of my own. So now the position of the law is this. Yes, when you marry, the properties that you had before you married is yours. When you marry, the properties that you acquire in the course of the marriage is a marital property. Is this marital property joint property, is this supposed to be owned jointly by the parties such that everybody will have a percentage in it? The court now says that it is not automatic. You can decide to acquire a property whilst you are married, and the way you go about acquiring the property will indicate whether you want it jointly with your partner. So if you are saying as a woman, in the course of divorce, you are saying that you have a joint right, you have a right in that particular property, you have to show to the court that, yes, you contributed to the acquisition of the property. 2, there was intent that you will both own it jointly. And then you have to prove that, yes, you acquired it jointly. So that is what the case of, this Kwachi case, this woman, Kwachi, there's a Kwachi case, it's a recent case, 2025 case. So for now, that is where the law stands. And if you ask my personal view, I think it's not a bad decision per se, because then we are saying that the moment you marry, you lose your right to own property by yourself. And the courts are saying that you still have that right to own properties by yourself. So as women, when you are contributing to a property that is acquired, it should be clear. Your name must be on the document. Even we shouldn't feel shy about demanding that our names must be on the property. Sometimes you find women actually giving money to the man to acquire the property, and the man acquires it in his personal name alone, and the woman just accepts it because they believe it's a family property. No, it doesn't work like that. It will come back to haunt you. So let's take steps to have our names on document. We should have receipts of our contribution as much as possible. Document our support in the acquisition of certain properties.
Thank you very, very much. Ordinarily, we are taking questions after, but
Yes, Sarah, your point. This will be clear to the knowledgeable or the educated ones. Those who are vulnerable, like, and even sometimes people have been to school, but they are ignorant of the law. And every woman cannot deny the belongingness of a man. And as it is, you marry and you look up to your husband. Initially, you won't have any odds of any doubt, and so you give yourself the best to your husband until probably as you grow, then matters are arising here and there. Then probably you become aware of yourself. And this has seriously retired a lot of women's progress. And I know that is the reason why Lands Commission like us, they instituted the point that, you know, if you are registering your land and it's Mr. and Mrs., then it means that the name Mr. Anku and Mrs. Sarah Anku should be there to really identify who is the Mrs. You understand? But the point I'm making here is that, you see, people get into marriage or women get into marriage whilst young, and you won't have that mind of trying to think of properties here and there. You give yourself total to your marriage, and at the end of it all, when the man is successful, which you have contributed right from day one. And so if it is like as they are saying, how do the woman defend her cause?
It is not cast in stone. The woman will have to prove that she has contributed one way or the other. It is more difficult to prove if you don't have documentary evidence. So the advice is, as much as possible, try to have documentary evidence. You can prove, you can have witnesses here and there who can witness to the effect that you actually even borrowed money and gave to the man to do A, B, C, D. You sold your car, you gave the money to him. You can prove it, but it becomes more difficult if you don't have the documentary one. But you can't lose everything. You have to prove to the court that yes, there was an intent to own it jointly, there was some form of contribution towards the acquisition of the property. And the judges will look at all that and come to a conclusion. But all I'm saying is that it's easier if you have documentary evidence to prove your point. And it's not as a young person, as a young person, you know what your rights were, and so.
Can I just add briefly to what Sarah said? I think that we're not trying to be cynical. We're not trying to take the view that, you know, when you go into a romantic,
Can't hear you.
when you go into a romantic relationship, as Irene first said, we're not here to, you know, cast aspersions on romantic marriages that last forever. Indeed, that's the ideal. But I think the time has come for young women to be a bit more aware when they go into relationships. I understand your point about, you know, you go in young, you're quite naive, you're very much in love, you're building a home together. And so, you know, it's the chicken and the egg situation of, you know, my eyes were closed till it all went wrong. And then suddenly I realized that I needed to be supported. But I think, you know, much as we're preparing ourselves and settling into a relationship with another person, we need to be aware of these things. So when we contribute, the time has come for us to keep receipts, to keep documents, to save information. I know I sound like the prophetess of doom, but that's the reality. Because as Sarah said, in court, the judge will look at everything. They even look at text messages, WhatsApp messages, your receipts on Momo, what have you. And when the more armed you are with documentation, the better your chances are. So that you're not in a situation where the judge is imposing a decision. It may well be that the judge, if there are 10 houses, the judge will give you one. But if you're able to showcase your dossier of documentation, you might end up with 5-5. So I think it's just, we just need to be a bit more aware about our rights. And hopefully this is what this conversation is going to do. That, you know, we go into the relationships very romantically, but with our eyes open as to how things can pan out.
Exactly. So I think that's why, one of the main reasons why we are having a session like this, because we are at a time where we want to create the awareness on these kind of things. Because whether we like it or not, that is the kind of system we are in today. And we need to be properly armed, properly protected, not just for ourselves, in most cases too, for our children as well. So, like she said, let's just be armed, keep proper receipts, and keep proper documentation. Auntie Sarah, so I like that you mentioned that so a married woman can actually acquire her own property as an individual. So if I find a property that I am interested in, how do I go about it, the registration, just to ensure that at the end of the day, it is protected and it's in my name, and if things go sour, there are no chances that I'll be deprived of it just because I got married.
The procedure is the same whether male or female. When you're acquiring a property, of course, you have to conduct your due diligence, first of all, to make sure you are not being cheated. When you decide finally to acquire it, you know you have to get the proper documentation, the indenture, what have you. And then the moment you receive it, you should have to take the necessary step to have the property registered in your name. As I mentioned earlier on, you have the right to acquire a property in your name. So you can go ahead to do that. If you are not comfortable doing it by yourself, you can seek assistance from anybody in the land registration process industry, or you can seek the assistance of a lawyer. I know people usually are not very comfortable with dealing with lawyers, but ideally, if you deal with a lawyer, you know you have your peace of mind because she's going to look out for your rights. But otherwise, you can even walk to the Lands Commission and ask for assistance to register it in your name and at the end of the day, the land will be, or the property will be in your name. And now, if in the worst case situation where there is a divorce, now it will be the duty of the man to prove that that property is not solely yours and that he contributed to it. And now he would now have to prove to the court that he actually contributed to the acquisition of the property. So it's always safe to go through the required steps to have it registered in your name. You purchase it yourself, you register it in your name. We have come across cases, numerous cases. Some of them, when I hear about it, I feel so sad. Some I just smile. A woman just gives money to the husband, please go and buy this property. The husband buys it in his personal name, and the woman does nothing about it because, oh, it doesn't matter, it's for the family. And now coming back to prove that she actually bought the land, she has no receipt, she has nothing to prove that she even transferred the money to the man. She actually gave the man fiscal cash to buy it, and the man bought it in his personal name. So it's good to depend on her husband, but just make sure that the right thing is done. If you send him to buy even a car for you, make sure it is registered in your personal name and not in his personal name, because then the burden will be on you to come and prove that indeed that property belongs to you.
Thank you very much. So we move away from this aspect of the conversation into another very sensitive area, the area of children. Again, in the very unfortunate circumstance that there's a separation, what happens to the children? Unfortunately, if when you go to court, the children are not there. When you are signing the divorce papers, they are not there. But at the end of the day, we all know that they face the more serious consequences of a separation or a divorce. So I'll move to Auntie Adelaide to help us with this. What does the law actually say about custody, access, and maintenance of children after a divorce? And when there are disputes, how are they resolved?
Okay, thank you for this. I have to say that it's quite a pleasure to be here talking about issues that are extremely critical. A number of these issues hinder women in society. It hinders our economic empowerment, and we all know how illustrious women are. And so it's a very, very important conversation, and I think the most important thing that you take away from this is that you spread the word. Ideally, a man and wife will live together as husband and wife in harmony, right? But the reality of our existence is that that doesn't always pan out that way. And the main casualty is normally the child, who's normally unseen or unheard. Man and woman fall out. There's so much issues in the household. There are difficulties in parenting. They play themselves against each other. That's how it starts. So that they play favorites with the children. So the daddy is father of the year, mother is father of the year. What gets lost is the interest of the child. Fortunately, the court's paramount consideration when there is an issue or a custody dispute, as we call it, is the child. Does that mean that the court doesn't care about the parents that are warring against each other? Very little. What do I mean by the court looking at the child's welfare as the paramount consideration? It means it's looking at the needs of the child and who can meet those needs best. It means they are looking for stability for that child to grow until majority. They are looking at the parents that can deliver the ultimate care of the child. Now, one may assume that normally the mother is the one who's giving custody of the child. Not necessarily, right? In our laws, we have the presumption that when a child is 7 years and under, the child should reside with the mother. But I have come across cases where the mother has been assessed as unfit to look after the child. It can be a wealth of issues. It can be mental health issues. It may well be that the mother has alcoholic issues, drug issues, and the like. And therefore, they look at the father and think, this father, perhaps with the support of paternal grandmother or aunts and so on, can hold down a full-time job and still look after the child. What does that mean? It means the court assesses both parents equally. They don't look at the man and say, it's a no-no. They look at both of you. And therefore, whilst you're warring with your spouse and whilst you're going through emotional turmoil, you need to be emotionally available for your child if you want to have custody of your child. Now, when you have custody of a child, or indeed even before it gets to that stage, when it comes to the welfare and the needs of the child, both the man and the woman are responsible. It doesn't matter whether you're married or you're just dating, you both have to look after your child. And that involves a myriad of needs. It could be just the general upkeep of the child, food, shelter, clothing. It could be medical needs, educational needs, health needs. It's not set in stone as to who is responsible. Before you go to court, the two of you, I like to call this, when you have parents who are separated or divorced, I always assess whether or not you have a working relationship, because that's different from a romantic relationship. Can the two of you sit around the table and decide what's best for your child? And many a time they're able to do that. They sign an agreement, a sort of co-parenting plan. Then they take it to court and present it to the judge and say, this is what we have agreed. We want to enter it as an order of the court. And it becomes a consent order. Why do you take it that step further? So that it's enforceable. If tomorrow the man gets up and says that he does not want to agree to this anymore, sorry, it's a court order. I can take you to court and enforce this, right? What the judge will be looking at when they are looking at who pays for what is who is financially capable as well, right? So if you have a typical scenario where man and wife, the man works full-time, the wife cares for the family and is at home, that wife is not disadvantaged. The husband would, the judge would not say, oh, well, she doesn't work, so she can't physically look after the child. The judge will say, she's been looking after your children for you. Open your wallet, right? You are going to pay for education, you're going to pay for that, you're going to pay for everything else while she's raising your children for you. So we are not disadvantaged, but what I would say when it comes to that, again, I'm a fan of documentation, right? Women naturally, and we're all guilty of that, you go shopping for the family, right? Your little money or your big money, you throw the receipts away. Right? Husband goes shopping for the family. It's a big event, right? He comes back with receipts to show you that indeed everything is well. So let's not set ourselves up to fail. Show that you also contribute to your children. The little that you make, if it's little, you still contribute. Because, when it comes to it, the judge is concerned about who can look after the child. And you can have in agreements or court orders the detail of what's going to happen in your children's life. Not just school. You can say that when it comes to these important decisions, both of us have to agree. When it comes to the choice of religion, choice of school, medical intervention, holidays, you have Easter, I have Christmas. It can be as detailed as all of that. So don't be shy about going to court. Court is not necessarily a bad thing. What court does is it allows an experienced, neutral person to look at both of you and make a decision in the best interest of the child. The court also encourages the husband and wife to come to a settlement. Why do they do that? Because really, if you go to court and it becomes a trial, you all insult each other and it affects the relationship even more than when you first came. And as I like to say, as lawyers, it's our job. We do it and go back to our families. But the two parents who have to live together at least look after these children to majority. So the less blows, the better. So ideally, if you can settle matters with your other half in the unfortunate situation, go and sit down and try with the help of lawyers, or indeed the two of you, if your relationship is not that bad, put together an agreement and say, you know what, let's enter it into court so that we all know where we stand. If we decide we'll not follow the order anymore, it's up to us. But I don't want you, chopping and changing your mind tomorrow that, in fact, I've decided I want Christmas, not Easter. I don't have time for that. Let's draw a line and move on. So issues to do with the children are of paramount consideration of the court. When it comes to it, they'll find a way of making sure the child's needs are met between the parents. And it's not about who has the flashy car and who has the flashy house. It's about who can meet the needs of the child.
Fantastic. But this is the ideal situation. Sometimes at initial stages, there really is a working relationship. But then the other partner gets another partner. Then in the bedroom, the other new partner is rubbing his head in a particular way or rubbing the head in a particular way and changing his or her mind about everything you have probably agreed on. So maybe the first 2 years, everything is going on perfectly. Then in the third year, in a particular month, half of the money comes. The next month, nothing comes at all. Children's fees are not being paid. Maintenance is not coming. What do you do, especially in the situation where you actually have custody of the children? What happens?
It happens more often than we think. You are, as a mother or a father, you're entitled to go to court to revisit the order that's been agreed, what we call enforcement. So if it's the man who's changed their minds and is not delivering, you issue a fresh application to court based on that court order and say, I need this enforced. So you bring the man back to court. The more evidence you have, the better. It's, some men will come and say, well, things are bad for me. It's not as good as it used to. You need to keep a close eye and be interested in the father or the mother of your children, whether you've separated or not. You need to have information on how they're getting on. If they still have their job, you don't know what they're talking about. You go to court and the judge will make an enforcement order to ensure that it enforces that order. They can also be held in contempt of court. The point is, court can be a long, drawn-out issue. Most people don't like to go to court. But sometimes that's the only way. If you don't have any elderly in your church that you can rely on or your family, then it's important that when things are falling apart, you go back to court as soon as possible. If you think lawyers are expensive, you are entitled to go to court. Take your matter to court yourself. What we have is what we call them our litigants in person. Whatever it is, go to the court registry. They'll help you if you need to fill out forms and what have you. Because, there's no point letting your children suffer just because you're sitting there thinking, what will the judge think? Or, if I go to court, what will my mother think? Back in the day, there was such a stigma attached to family law matters. When people were going to court, they hide to get to the family court. Times have changed. We used to have what we call the divorce court, and nobody wants to go to a divorce court, right? But thankfully, the Chief Justice before this one decided to change the name to family court. So when you go, nobody knows whether it's divorce, family, adoption. You go there quietly and do your business. If we put our foot down and assert our rights, a lot will do well for us and for our children. The law is there to protect you. It's a matter of you taking that opportunity. Yes, and there's also legal aid, the Legal Aid Commission. Sometimes they provide, they are overly worked, as you can imagine, but it's there for free legal service for those who genuinely need that support.
All right. Let's look at another angle, because you have sort of focused the conversation on the mother and the father. But there are certain instances where, look, the partners are so bitter. They are so angry, so much resentment. And unfortunately, the children are always at the receiving end of this resentment. A mother wakes up and this shouldn't be the situation, but the mom wakes up, and if you're not lucky, and the child looks exactly like his father, every day, this child is a reminder of the pain you have gone through. So, and in most instances nowadays, you give birth to a child, and he's the exact replica of his father after carrying the child for 9 months. Then all this resentment is transferred on the child. The father too, probably on the other end, the court has deemed him unfit to take care of the children due to a mental issue or something else. So this means that both the mom and the dad are not in the best position to take care of the child. What happens to such a child?
That's when our external family system comes in very handy. I think in our cultural setting, when there are parents that are struggling to raise a child, there are times when a grandmother steps in, an uncle steps in. We all have friends or family who grew up in that sort of environment. Nothing has changed. When you bring into the formal setting, a member of your external family is entitled to make an application to the court for custody of their grandchild, of their niece, or their nephew. Legally, that's been made provision for in our laws, and many families are taking advantage of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, there also comes the issue as to whether both parents consent and will support that particular grandmother. So, for example, if mom suggests maternal grandmother, then that's her mom. Dad has to be, amenable to the idea to make it work. Otherwise, you resist it in court. And another important thing for that third person is that that person will be responsible for facilitating contact arrangements between maybe father and the children, right? Because that person has the responsibility of ensuring that they are nurturing relationships between the child and both parents. So that's another thing that the court looks at. We don't want partial applicants who will destroy the relationship between the father and the mother because he's the mother's mother, it's the mother's mother. That is also something that has to be looked at in terms of who will support the relationship between the absent parent, if you like, and the child.
Thank you very much. Now we delve into another sensitive area, domestic abuse. Now, this is actually really prevalent in most of our homes. Whether we like it or not is the reality, though very, very unfortunate. So Bridget, a woman walks into your office one evening or she gives you a call, says, I don't feel safe at home. You ask her why. My husband, or it could even be the man calling and saying my wife yells at me at the least provocation. He controls my finances, and so I'm unable to even buy basic things for myself. Taking care of the children have become an issue. Mind you, in this situation, she hasn't said anything about the man or the woman being physical, but she is going through some sort of emotional torture. She comes to you seeking for advice. What actually counts as domestic abuse in Ghana? And does it always have to be someone lifting the arm and hitting another person? What's the range? What does the law cover under domestic abuse?
Okay, so for Ghana, when we are looking at domestic abuse, we are looking at abuse in almost every sense of the word. So whether it's physical, whether it's emotional or psychological, sometimes the person is messing up with your mind, whether it's sexual, because we are not just looking at between a boyfriend and a girlfriend, a husband and a wife, a fiancé, or we are looking at between even parents and children, even a house help. So long as it's the domestic setting, you are living under one roof, we are looking at all the people that are involved. So once there's that form of abuse, and I think you're also asking about where one partner is in control of finances. So because of that, you are afraid to leave, you feel a bit restricted. it's important that you report it. And in Ghana, you can report to DOFSU, and usually they are the police station. So it's important that you report these things. And it's important that you report it quickly and early. Preserve your life. We've heard stories of how one woman was being abused. The children were reporting it, and she kept saying it's not true, it's not true. Until one time, her husband was so abusive, she blacked out. But luckily, there was somebody there who heard the scuffle and came to her aid. It's important that we preserve our lives. I've seen death. Look, there's a thin line between life and death, and it's a matter of time. So if at any point you feel your life is threatened, or there's even a hint that your life could be threatened, I don't think you should be afraid of stigma and stay there and die. In any case, if you die, who will take care of your children? If there are children. So preserve your life, report it to the police station. They know what to do. You won't be the first person to come. So report to the police station. DOFS will take over. They'll know what to do. They will advise you, and then you can take it on from there. Yes, for your mental health, you can report to the mental health centers. Talk about these things. Okay. Sometimes you realize the person starts to dress funny because of what's going on in the home. So these things are important. I think I know.
How many of you have heard of DOFSU? DOFSU. She said DOFSU. I think we need to break it down. Yeah.
I think it's Domestic
Violence Support Unit.
Yes.
It's attached to the CID. It's at cantonments. Is it? Yeah. And it's very resourceful. I should really say that they've done wonders for people I've come across with. Because what they do is they support you mental health for yourself, psychological support for your children. They also prosecute if you're bold enough to take your partner there to make sure he's prosecuted. And they support you as well to make a maintenance order application to the court. If financially your husband is being abusive, your wife is being abusive, so you have nothing to your name, they will also support you to go to court to make an application for a maintenance order, which is essentially money to look after yourself and children. So it's a very active unit. And if you have anybody who's going through domestic violence, please refer them to DOFSU. Okay? It's attached to the CID. They are very, very good. And they have offices in all the districts. They are very, very operational and very supportive. When you go to the CID headquarters, it's very impressive. They have children rooms that are fully decorated. They have all sorts of facilities. So let's make use of them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that addition. What's the role of the church? How can the church support victims of domestic abuse? Let's move away from DOFSU a bit. Yes.
For some communities, the church is the first place they're going to go to. And I listen to Christian radio a lot, and sometimes when people bring their problems, it's all talk to your pastor. Have you spoken to your pastor? It's almost like the pastor is a repository of all wisdom, all solutions. It's a reality. They will come to church. Victims will come to church. They'll come for confession with the priest. What kind of advice will the church give? Are we, some men, they are like that. What kind of advice and what kind of support are we giving to our fellow parishioners or to our friends that come to us in these settings? Or from the priest's point of view, what kind of support are we giving? Being one of the first points of call for most people, I think it's important that we, having been here, we've heard about DOFSU. So if you didn't know, you can hold your friend's hand, or if the priest can step in. And sometimes they just need someone to, when you suffer abuse, it messes you up mentally. You start to have this victim attitude, you're afraid to do anything. So sometimes the priest can, offer some words of advice and comfort, and then encourage you to do the right thing, to report it. Or sometimes if we can give some financial support to, why not? For the person to feel a bit emboldened, that until the maintenance orders are made, in the meantime, if we can support, let's do that. We are here for one another. I think that's how the church can get involved actively when it comes to.
Thank you very much.
Abuse.
Thank you. Even as we draw curtains here, I think it's important that we speak up. That is the very, very first step. Regardless of what you're going through, just always speak up. Speak to someone. And sometimes it's not just about speaking to anybody at all, but speaking up to the right people who can help you, who can preserve your life. So that at the end of the day, we don't wait until things are so murky or you are just at the verge of losing your life. And most of the times, at those times, very little can be done. So at the slightest inch or the slightest, whatever seems as a threat to your life, it's very, very important that we speak up and speak to someone and speak to the right people. It's very, very important. The law has avenues to address situations like this. So I would like to ask a question, and I'll need your very honest opinions on this. This is to the audience. How many of us have already written our wills? Who here has a will written, properly documented, that in the unfortunate incident that this happens to me, this is how I want my affairs, my property to be dealt with? Anybody here? Oh, wow. Father, your will is with God. Nobody. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. You don't have anything? Really? Are you sure?
When we think of will, we think of death.
Yes.
So we don't want to talk about it.
This is one topic nobody wants to go near. But today, we are here to touch on all, like I said, all the legal issues that affect our daily lives. And of course, wills are part of them. It's important that we know how we even prepare a will, who do you speak to, how it's done. And it's actually important to know that it's one of the very, very technical areas in the law, because you miss one step and you stand there, it's possible it would not even be administered at all when you die. And so that is an area that has to be done and done properly. And you don't just get any lawyer, but a very, very good lawyer who knows what they're doing. So that at the end of the day, you don't end up dying intestate when you actually prepare the will. So Auntie Sarah will be helping us delve into this very, very important topic that most of us don't want to discuss, but we will be discussing today. So Auntie Sarah.
When it
Why-
comes...
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
No, you can just go ahead.
I want to say that not having a will is nothing strange. We all must have wills, but I believe that the lawyers don't have wills. I believe that they don't have wills. Most lawyers die interstate all the time. That we know the right thing to do, but for some reason, I don't know whether it's cultural, we believe that the moment you draft your will, you are going to die the next day. I don't know. Maybe that is what, prevents us from drafting a will. But definitely we are all going to die. We all know that Father is here. We all know we're going to die one day. You don't know when you're going to die. But it will be very painful if after all this hard work that we put into our daily lives, the little that we make, Jane is saying we don't have, we do have something. You have money in the bank. You have something small somewhere. At the end of the day, it will be very painful if that little property you have goes to somebody else that you don't wish to give it to. You don't want somebody to control what you have acquired through your hard work. So you want to control how your assets will be distributed when you are no longer there, especially to make sure your loved ones, your closest family are well taken care of. So what is the will? The will is to tell the world that when I'm no longer there, this is how I want you to distribute my assets. But as Irene said, it's very technical. You may think you have drafted a will, but it will not hold in court, and you will still have died interstate. For instance, there are certain critical requirements of a will. Apart from you listing, it should go to this, my debts should be paid, this person should execute my will, should be my executor and all that. If at the end of drafting the will, you haven't signed the will, it will not be valid. You have to sign the will. Now the law says that it must be witnessed by 2 persons in their presence. So you sign in 2 persons' presence, in each other's presence. So you can't sign in the presence. Let's say Adelaide comes to witness my will, and then she sees me sign. She also signs. Then I take the document to Bridget to sign. No, it will not hold in court. The 2 must be there to witness me sign, and both of them will sign in each other's presence, just for security reasons. It has to be there, otherwise it will not hold. What happens sometimes after the person is dead and gone, if there's going to be a feud over the will, some of the witnesses can come up and say, we did not sign in each other's presence, and that could be a very serious challenge for the whole execution process. Number 2, you get to choose who will see to the sharing of your assets. You get to choose your own executors. You get to choose people who can now take care of your children in your absence. You don't leave it to the state to decide. If you do not have a will, you will die intestate. And when you die intestate, all it means is that the state is going to use the law to decide how your assets are going to be distributed. There we have a formula, mathematical formula for sharing. So assuming I'm no longer there and I don't have a will, then they say, oh, Sarah has died. Okay, she has a husband. Okay, she has a son. Okay, oh, her parents are not alive. Okay, then this is how we are going to share it. Okay, husband, you will get 3/16. Child will get 9/16 of all her assets, and then the remaining quarter will go to customary law distribution. Now it gets to the customary law distribution. They say, okay, by our custom, the property must go to her successor, her sister, her niece, her nephew, and then that is how your assets will be shared. If I die today and I don't have a spouse, it's just my child, they say, okay, give them 75%, give the remaining to the customary law to be shared. If you have very good family members, I'm a Ghana, we are patriarchal. They'll say that, or patrilineal. So they'll say that, okay, by the patrilineal heritage, the property must go to my child. So then they'll give it back to my child. But if, let's say, I did your matrilineal, right? Okay, so now it goes to who is a customary successor. This amount will now go to her and all that. You want to be in control of how your assets are shared at the end of the day. So it is very important that we have the will that will direct the court, direct the state as to how your properties will be distributed at the end of the day, and seek advice, legal advice. Adelaide mentioned the legal aid. They can help you in many ways. You get there and you tell them exactly what you want. They can help you to do it. But otherwise, most of us lawyers also have pro bono services. You can come to a lawyer. If you don't have the money, you can explain your situation to the lawyer. The lawyer may assist you to do it for free. So don't shy away. It is better to have that will. And the fact that you have the will, it doesn't mean you're going to die the next day. A friend of mine came to my office. She wanted a will. I'm like, hey, how do you want a will? They said, you a lawyer asking me why you want a will. You need to get a will. And she's done it, and she's safe. She wants to secure her assets. She's worked hard. She's acquired stuff. She has money in the bank. She has cars. She has houses. She wants them to go to her children, and she doesn't want them to end up in any person's hands. So basically, we all advise us. Let's advise ourselves to have wills. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So what if I'm unable to prepare a will while I'm strong and active, and at the point of death, I'm on my deathbed, weak, and then I realize, okay, probably this is it for me. Is there still room for me to put something quickly together, or that ends it? Once I don't have a lawyer around, once there's nobody to help me properly put this in place, that ends it for me. What happens?
A will can be just one sentence. I give all my properties to this person. So long as you have witnesses there, that is it. Those who witness you doing it. You may not be even strong enough to sign your own signature. Somebody can even help you to thumbprint it. And the witnesses, the doctors, the nurses, they can always witness it. So long as there's somebody there. There's also the customary wills where you have, is it the Samasio, how you call it? Yes, Samasio. Even that one requires witnesses and exchange of some drinks and all that to prove that indeed the person on her deathbed said that this property should go to this person and will to that person. But ideally, it's always better to put it in writing.
Fantastic. Now, closely related to matters of will is inheritance. One of the parties, well, one of the spouses dies, and now there's some property that the children and the wife need to inherit. And in some cases, the family members come in, they feel they have a share, they feel they have to evict the wife and the children from the family, and everything just becomes so messy. As women, it's important that we know what our rights are in situations like this. So what happens if I lose my husband, God forbid, and the family comes in and they say, look, we have a share in it. Unfortunately, he didn't make a will, and so you have to move out with the children. What happens? What are the remedies under the law for me?
The scenario you have just given was that was the situation in the early 1980s. Now, because of the problem it imposed, where families were driven out of their homes, the nuclear families were driven out of the home by successors, the state came up with the PNDC Law 111, which governs the interstate. Now, interstate succession. With that law, in the unfortunate situation where you lose your husband, it doesn't mean that the customary successor can just walk in and come and drive you from the house. No, you are entitled to stay in that house. In fact, in distributing the assets, the law says you, the wife, the widow, and the surviving children can choose one of the properties. If there's only one property, if there is only one house, you get to take the house. If there are more than one houses, then you take one and the others will be shared according to the percentages that I mentioned. So the wife and the children are taken care of. The problem occurs when you have one widow and many children from other women. You can also have situation in the polygamous state where the man there are 3-4 widows. How do you take one property? So that is where, if they do not agree, what usually happens is that we end up selling that particular house and sharing the money amongst the children and the wife. Now, this is separate from the 316, 916 that I mentioned earlier on. So having taken this one out, then we look at the rest of the assets, put them together. Then we say that the children are entitled to 9/16. When we divide this, they are entitled to 9/16 of the rest of the property. And then the wife is entitled to 3/16. Now, the thorny issue here is where the wife believes that she has contributed to that one house. So how then do you split it? So the advice is, do not allow that property, that particular house, to be part of the inventory for the letters of administration. The moment it forms part of it, then it is part of the estate that must be distributed. So you should challenge that house before it goes into the inventory and be part and form part of the estate. So you know your rights. I'm handling a current case right now. The woman participated. She made us put the particular property in the estate, and now she's crying foul to say, no, I contributed to it. And that is also another legal battle that we are fighting. So you need to know your rights, know what you are entitled to, and take the right step at the right time. If you don't understand, always consult a lawyer. There's always the legal aid. There's a legal committee here in this church. You can always approach any of the lawyers in it, and I believe they can help you.
Please let me add to when we talked about ejection of the widow, I find that thing so unjust. It just breaks my heart. The person has lost her husband. The children have lost their father, as if that's not bad enough. We are mean enough to enter the space, and lock the man's room. And sometimes it's a joint bedroom. So if you are locking my bedroom, that means I don't have access to. Please, the law says it's a crime. Nobody can touch any property upon the death of anybody. It's a crime. If anybody does that to you, bullies your friend, your sister, report it to the police station. Nobody can do that. It's a criminal offense. Okay, you are protected. Nobody can or should eject you from wherever you're staying just because your father or your spouse is dead.
Great.
Let me just add that I know we still have our traditions where I can speak for my custom when, assuming I'm no longer there, my family would want to symbolically lock my stuff up until it is open for the next, for it to be distributed amongst those who are going to inherit my assets. In that case, people find a way of maybe trying to get a room in the house and then put the stuff in there and lock that particular room. So you still have access to the room, your bedroom with your husband, when he passes on. So we have to also make room for some of these traditions also so that they don't conflict.
All right. Thank you so much. But as women, how can we properly position ourselves in such a way that when the husband is no more, when someone's husband is no more, they are adequately protected themselves and their children? How can women, what can we do at this point in time now that properly secures our future when the men are no more?
I think that we are learning each day, and we know that we need to keep records of what we do. We need to be able, we take care of ourselves even now, but we just need to keep records of it. Fortunately, as I said, we have the PNDC law that protects us. So the moment the man is no longer there, at least we have the law that shields us. But that is not to say that we will throw our hands in despair and say that unless the properties, the monies are shared, I will not have anything. You can try to expedite the acquisition of the letters of administration so that you can have access to the man's monies in the bank to be able to use for the children, the school fees and all that. But at least we should always be in a position to be able to fend for ourselves for at least some period of time before all these legalities are done. Because if you start accessing the man's, let's say, bank monies in the bank, it will amount to intermeddling. Because the man is dead, the state takes over, and you have to take the right steps in order to access the man's property. So all you have to do is probably to expedite the distribution of the assets in order to have access to the money.
Great. So final question before we move to the audience for questions. Sometimes at the funerals, that is when families or children you had no idea about begin to surface. So you can probably protect yourself now, but then what about the things that you cannot foresee in future? What happens when at that point of distributing the property, you probably had your letters of administration already, and now there's a family springing up from nowhere. They come and say, this was also our father. What do you do?
It's rather unfortunate, but the child will be the child of the deceased and will have equal rights as your own children. There's nothing you can do about it.
Let me just add that although the law protects us by way of intestate, succession law, wills and so on, I believe in protecting yourself when you and the man are alive, and I'll explain. There are ways that we can protect ourselves right from the outset. If a man comes to undertake what we call customary marriage, engagement, and tells you that they don't believe in marriage in the church, insist upon it. You believe in marriage in the church. Sometimes women, we are worst enemies. We are so in love, and the man says, oh, yeah, you know, all that stuff. You don't need a fancy wedding to be married before God. Marry that man, whether it's just 3 people or 4 people in the church, and you go home and eat your fufu and that's it. Why are you putting pressure on yourself? Because these steps are so important. It's the difference between entering into a potentially polygamous marriage and actually being the wife, the legally wedded wife. Because it has, as we can tell from our discussions, it has implications, right? If you set up your nest and you decide to buy what we call the matrimonial home, make sure your name is on the dotted line, my dear ladies. Don't let the man bamboozle you and make you feel uncomfortable about the conversation. And we know our courts now protect both financial and non-financial marriage. Because if you were not the homemaker, can the man go out and acquire all that money? No. He will have to stay at home and change nappies. So your job is equally important. So you deserve to be named on the document. If it comes to it and both of you have an appetite for a joint account, which will strictly look at the outgoings to care for your children and a little bit extra for a rainy day, 6 months or so, take advantage. We need to get into the business of having the uncomfortable conversations. Because when you are grieving and you are most vulnerable, that's when things rear their heads out, like children who look exactly like your husband suspiciously, but it's not yours, all sorts of things. So please, whilst you are getting ready for the romantic relationship, we don't have a choice now. We really need to start looking at these important things and raising conversations when the mood is right, right? So that doesn't become an argument. But the conversation nonetheless must be had. So for me, it all starts from the get-go. Make sure you iron out these issues so that you're not fighting with the external family and all sorts of things, especially when you are not financially empowered. There are ways of protecting yourself and your children.
Certainly, ways of protecting yourself and your children. At this point, I think it's very clear that this is not negotiable. No matter how much you are in love, we need to have the uncomfortable conversations. Now we throw the questions to the audience. If you have any questions, we've said so much, spoken a lot, touched on different areas of law. If you have any question, feel free to get a microphone and ask. Any questions? Father has a question.
So I want to say something about what Sarah said about you having your husband bringing in a child after your death as one of your children. I want to encourage all women here. If you have a hint that your husband has a child somewhere, please talk about it, just as they are saying. If there is the need of doing a DNA test, encourage him to do, so that you are sure. Because women seems to be so defensive. Oh, my husband will not do that. He will never do that. Meanwhile, your husband can do that. And after he is gone, you are now burdened with all the troubles. You get a session of people say, don't agree. This one, Enyashi, agree. And at the end of the day, you give yourself stress. But just as she's saying, the law is the law. The children must share. So don't be defensive to the point that you give yourself mental illness. So let's talk about the untalkable. Please, encourage him. If it is your child, please, can we do a DNA? Let's all agree and know that this child is one of your children. And from day one, you know the child is going to share in whatever you have. So that you give yourself peace of mind when the man is no longer on this earth. Thank you.
I have to say, you're a bigger woman for saying that. When you hear this piece of news, the last thing you want to do is to be logical and say that let's go and bring the child. You want to kill the man immediately, but it's very good advice.
Good evening. Father Do, it sounds as if the women are planning a coup d'etat.
Mr. Pedro, thank you for coming.
Sitting in the midst of women and hearing all the things you are saying. It's as if the men are on the wrong, I don't know. But that's just by the way. So I think I heard Bridget mention that customary marriage is polygamous. So I married two. Then I decide to take the second one to the altar. I had something like, that cannot be possible, that will not happen. Or is it the case that we shouldn't allow it to happen? Or, I just want some clarity around that. That's number one. My second question is, some time ago, we didn't used to have mobile transactions, we didn't used to have mobile apps, internet banking, etc., etc. So when it comes to the point where you have to prove things you have given to your husband, in those days were quite difficult. I believe in this age, it's a little more simpler. However, the point you made that you trying to prove these things in court sometimes can be very daunting. So the advice is that we all, equally the men too, have to be careful. It shouldn't be women. Unfortunately, I'm the father and I. Okay.
Wait for Father's Day. We'll advise you.
So that, but I have one question. If I build a house on my father's property or on my parents' property, land for that matter, and and in my will I add that property to somebody else, what would be the status of that property? Thank you.
Okay, so on the customary law marriage, customary law is potentially polygamous. So where there are two women, and now you want to go into monogamous with one, it's void. It can't be possible. So then you'd have to divorce one and then converse the nature of one of the marriages. You simply can't do that. That's the problem with it. And then about the point about Momo transactions, one way of keeping records, and I was happy that Ali mentioned text and co. WhatsApp. One way of keeping records, WhatsApp messages. Sometimes what I do is, I sent you 50 Ghana, question mark. So it's a record you have, so that you yourself, when you forget, you can refer in the conversation that you sent. So if you said, oh babe, did you buy the land that I asked you to buy? It was 500,000, right? It appears like you're making conversation, but you're actually putting a record down. So eventually something happens, you just print your WhatsApp conversation to say that, see, I even asked them this question. And I realized that even in the work setting, I usually refer to conversations with my boss when I'm looking for information, correspondence. So I do that a lot. You purposely put it down in text. Then there's something that you can refer to. Then he won't tell you, I didn't tell you to send the letter. We don't have that conflict. It's down in WhatsApp. And the family property thing. Family land belongs to the family, except where members of the family agreed that you can have it. So if you build on family land, unfortunately, it is not yours. Except the entire family agreed and told you that they were aware Sly is building, we know it's for him, we don't care, and they were express about it, because when people die, people can change their minds suddenly. So except there was that, typically family land does not belong to you, and you can't will what is not yours. You can only will what is yours. You can only will your interest in something. So if you don't have interest in it, you can't give it out to a beneficiary?
So I think I think the question I asked sounded very simple. You know, this land was given to him, was given to me through, oh, this is my son. I have this land. You can build maybe in the middle there. I built. Everybody knew my dad and my mom agreed that I should build. My dad and my mom, they are no more. Then subsequently, my siblings and other people now say that, look, the whole property, like you said, is for the family now. We need that land.
So what there was a case.
So the point is, do you have evidence?
Yes.
The same
that's
people
what
who you can take to court to say that, yes, we heard mom and dad say that the land, he should build on it. Now, are now fighting you on the land.
Try and go a step further. If your father wants to gift you a parcel of land, you can do a legal document called a deed of gift, right? A deed of gift. So that's evidence that it's been gifted to you and you didn't have to pay for it. So a number of times families do that. They access a lawyer or what have you and say, can you draft a deed of gift? Then it's documented perfectly. And on that basis, there's no issue with the will, as in who actually owns the land.
So documentation is key. It's not a point of hearsay or
There's
I
nothing
told you. There's
casual
nothing
these
like
days. There's
Thank
nothing
you.
casual these days.
And I think Bridget mentioned that in sending these momos, the narrations are very important.
Yes.
You can describe all these things we are talking about in your narration.
You're preparing
And that
for a rainy day,
Absolutely.
right? It's
absolutely.
all romantic,
Thank
but
you.
it's good evidence. I think Father Doe had a question.
Okay, so mine
I'm
is
very
a
interested in
contribution.
his question. Go on.
So Irene was asking what the church can do to help victims of domestic violence. And I think Bridget mentioned that the priest can help. I also want to suggest that the counselors can also be of help. And what we are discussing now, the counselors can also lay emphasis on it, because when it comes to marriage, documentation, as we are saying now, is easier said than done, because it can also raise some trust issues. Because your partner can go like, why are you saying that we should document it? Does it mean you don't trust me? Here lies the case. Maybe you think you are also falling behind, so you want to enter into the marriage. So I think that the counselor should lay emphasis on it, so that it will not be like the women coming into it are not, right from the onset, they are not, they don't trust their partners. So I think if the counselors emphasize on it, I think it can bridge that gap. So that is my contribution.
It's not easy. I think that, in other jurisdictions, other countries, you have things like prenuptial agreements that are enforceable. In our country, it isn't, where you sit there before the marriage and iron out who owns this and what will happen when we break up. So you face it head on. So, your suggestion is good, but ultimately, it's a matter for you, the person, and the relationship. Not in a confrontational way, but you have to find the right mood as well, not to aggressively come out with it. But when it comes to things like your matrimonial home being in joint names, it's a conversation to be had, to say, oh no, it's not like, I'm being materialistic, but I want to protect our children as well. You never know. So you shift it that way and talk about the fact that you are protecting your joint children in respect of that. As for the marriage in the church, you can blame Father Doe to say that the church that I go to, you have to take me to the altar, or, things like that. So there are ways of trying to, especially when you think about the fallout, when things don't go well down the line, you need to muster the courage and have these conversations. It's very important.
And there's something that Aristotle said, that drama is for us to rehearse things before they happen. I like that statement. So when you're watching a movie, a Nigerian movie, you can even stage it, and the scene appears, hey babe, let's go and register ours. You know, it's an opportunity to raise the conversation. You know, and take advantage. You know, where children are being funny and they are in trouble, then I just turn to the children in the room. You see, when we advise you, you are not listening. See, that child is about to die. That's the point of movies. So let movies raise these conversations. It's not about you. Maybe when you are not here, and then it would help.
Father had a question. Okay, all right.
Okay, so my question may sound a little silly. I don't know.
There's nothing silly here at all. Please
Okay.
feel free.
So
Yeah.
my question is, why is it men
Please.
who write a will? I don't understand.
The
Why
microphone.
why is it men who write a will? For instance, we live in one house. We only have one property. All I know is it's the man who is writing the will.
No,
Yes.
you can both write a will.
To my end, okay.
So your question is, why is it that it's always the men
Who writes
are
the
writing
will?
the wills?
Because that is how come they are able to leave the women
Right.
out. And then secondly, my other question, when your husband leaves you out of a will, what's your option? What can you do?
Yes.
You can have a joint will. Some men don't do. They will not allow. They won't let you even see what they've written. What do you do in that case?
The man has written his one. Yeah.
It's, what you are saying is something that happens. You could be left out of the will. It happens all the time, sometimes actually. And when you are left out of the will, then the law will talk about reasonable provision for you. But again, I come back to before the probate is obtained from the court, you need to challenge that particular asset before it enters the inventory of the assets of the estate. Indicate that you have rights in that particular house. I handled a case where they had joint properties, both parties, both a man and wife. They even had joint accounts and so on. But upon the demise of the man, he willed everything and gave some to the wife. Did not even acknowledge the fact that the properties were jointly owned by the two parties. So when that happens, please take the initial step of ensuring that the assets that you are interested in does not enter inventory. If it does and the probate is obtained, you now have to take steps to challenge it and get it out of that estate before you can, also enforce your rights in that particular estate, in that particular property.
Yeah.
I also want to ask this question. People will marry young, and then they will have about 2 or 3 children. And the unfortunate will happen, the man will die. They have their small house they are living in. But when a woman's husband dies young, she will certainly want to marry. And if she wants to marry, that she has the right to bring the new husband into the house she has inherited.
The house she has inherited belongs to herself and the children, not herself alone. So if the children are going to allow her to bring the new husband to stay in her share of the room, so the house will be shared amongst you and the children. So if there are 4 rooms and there are 3 children, you have 1 room, and the 3 children also have their single rooms. I've seen situations where we have actually partitioned the house. Somebody got kitchen, somebody got dining area. We actually get the surveyors to do that, and they know how to do it. They'll partition it. So your part now becomes yours. You may be given a vesting assent to that particular area. So whatever you do with your property now is up to you. But you cannot take the whole house and bring your new husband in there, because there are others who have rights to that particular house.
Some men, they like Adufudia. They know that the woman has a house. So I want to go and marry her. Maybe the children may not be that grown.
But when the children grow, they have rights in the house. Maybe whilst they are young, you can get away with something, but the house belongs to them as well, so you can't have it for forever.
Okay, I'm here once again. So, Auntie Sarah, you mentioned that once, let's say, your spouse passes away, the estate becomes the property of the state. No. Okay.
It is the man's estate.
Is the
The
man's
deceased estate.
Okay.
That is represented by the executors or personal representatives or the administrators. The estate is the estate of the deceased person.
Okay.
But if the person died interstate, it will be distributed according to what the law states. The law of the state says.
Okay. So let's say the person died interstate, but then you have it's a joint account. Will it be an offense if you have, let's say, you have access to the account, then you make maybe withdrawals before you do the inventory for the early?
That's a really tricky one.
For the letters of administration.
That's a tricky one. One can argue that you also have rights in that particular bank account. To stay safe, I would say try and get the letters of administration so that you can, legally access the whole amount in there. Otherwise, I don't know how you are going to prove that I only access my part of it and not the other part of it. I don't know.
It's actually an offense to deal with a deceased property before the letters of administrations come. It's called intermeddling under the law. It's an offense.
Okay.
But I think as much
but
as
then
possible,
in this case, it's a joint something. And let's say that is what you fall on for the day-to-day running of the house. What do you do?
I think she's raising the practical question of, I had a friend who said his wife knows all his Visa card PIN numbers so that in the events where he is not alive, she can take care of the children or pay school fees. I could understand his logic, because imagine school fees are to be paid and LA is taking a long time because you have family members that are being difficult. They are purposely punishing you, and there are school fees to be paid. I can imagine that. So if I were to be advising you, I'll take off my lawyer's cap. Then I'd probably advise you that if you have his Visa card and you can pay school fees even ahead, But as a lawyer, I'll tell you that you can't do that, please. It is intermediate.
Okay, so my final question. Can a will be contested?
Yes, a will can be contested.
Yes. Intermeddling is a crime, please. Intermeddling is a crime. Please, it's a crime. Intermeddling is a crime. You don't want to do that. It's a crime.
Let me just say that if the bank gets to know that your husband is dead, they will block the account. These are things that, and like you're saying, once you access the account and it's not you, it's a criminal thing. So somebody can take you on thereafter, even when you go for letters of administration. But I have another question or a comment. I had a colleague in the office who got pregnant by a young man, and she gave birth. At a point, the young man didn't take responsibility. So she came to see me, and we advised her we should go to DOFSU. We went to DOFSU, we started the process. The young man was invited. Then at a point, the mother said, that was the first child. So, don't worry, don't forget about this DOFSU, because it was becoming, you have to be going for meetings and all those things. And for me, that was a challenge. I was extremely disappointed, because my understanding and my view for asking her to go to DOFSU was just to ensure that the guy will be responsible to support the child. And the young lady was not somebody working very high, and so she needed also some funds to support the child. So my concern and my take is, parents sometimes come into these conversations and make us use the God factor and Yeshri, because they look at it with the wrong lens, in my view. I don't know what your advice would be to parents here.
Okay, so let me get it right. You went to Dofsu, you started the process, and then the man backed out, or Dofsu wasn't supportive enough?
Not Dofsu, the mother of the lady, the
Oh,
lady's
yes,
mother,
Yes, yes.
thought that she shouldn't worry because after all she's gotten a child. So you should leave the
Yeah,
the normal Ghana philosophy.
I think we are entrenched in our cultural ways, and sometimes our own family members inhibit our progress. When you talk about divorce, when you talk about asserting your rights, sometimes there's always an aunt or a grandmother who says, you know, it's too much, to boise. But the times have changed now where you have to assert your rights. You have to take the avenues available to you. And it depends, right? Sometimes you have overbearing family members who will try and stop you from taking action. But you've got to look at what is in the best interest of your child. I think as a mother or a father, if you look at the best interest of your child, you will not shirk away from your responsibilities. You will not say you will not pay school fees. But unfortunately, it happens. But as the mother, you need to have that courage, right, to act in what is best interest of your child, devoid of family members holding you back. And if it's not working, go to the court. The time has come for these things to be enforced, because it is to our detriment if we don't take advantage of the wealth of laws that we have. Yes, you might ostracize yourself a little bit from your family, they might talk behind your back and so on. But when you close your door, it's you and your child, and what's in the best interest. So surround yourself with people who will support you, right? Not people who will drag you down or make you doubt what you are doing. Because at the end of the day, the bills and the school fees come to you. They don't go to the grandmother or the grand aunt who's telling you, Famanyame. Yes, pray about it, but the law is there for a reason as well, to support you. So let's have courage. I think sometimes it's a lack of courage. But if you have courage, or you surround yourself with positive people who will support you and urge you on, you are able to access a whole lot more, which will make life a lot more easier for you. That's what I think.
And so now, all this we've discussed is an eye-opener to some of us, but too late to some of us, especially my mother, some of my siblings, and myself. So now, we all here, I don't think those who really need it didn't come. And to me, I tell people I don't want you to go through the bad thing I've gone through. So why don't you, this panel, make a plan with the marriage counselors? Because a lot of people need it. Not necessarily we are going to marriage because of property, but how to do things wisely as a Christian woman with that good virtues. You know, you should be wiser. I feel if I have something, my children have no problem having it. But the man, you have a sister-in-law who is so something like, you bring a problem. So how they can defend themselves or protect themselves from the eventuality when the bad things come. So I think you make yourself available with a bit of caution and directing for the young ladies in our church. I see this church like a family. Than to go there, because when a woman is in love, we are blind, we are deaf. You see the red flag, but you ignore it. To arm ourselves whilst he's in the marriage. We have to marry. We have to bring our children to protect our destiny. But as the lady said, you shouldn't do it like you came in for something, but to make all of us happy
Yeah.
and protected. So please make yourself available. And I think series of lectures for
yeah.
the young ones. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. That's a very good idea because that's a major part of the whole dance of marriage as well, because that will encourage longevity, sustainability, and ultimately it will make both of you content. So that's a good idea.
Hello.
And
I agree with Auntie Cynthia and our sister over there when they said that the counselors must also play a role in it. So probably it should form part of the marriage counseling. You should teach them about properties and their rights in the course of the marriage, so that when they go back, it will be easier for them to speak on the subject matter.
Hello. I think we are all aware that divorce cases are in ascendancy now, in this our contemporary time. And if you really listen to some of the cases and listen to what you are saying, don't you think that women are losers? And again, women are losers. Women, they lose. They do not get what they want in marriage. Again, also, the men, they are the richest. They get more money. If you have the same profession with a man, before you say Jack, the man is richer than you do. You lawyers, the men lawyers are richer than you, isn't it? Yes, and so if there is an asset, or if a man dreams to really build, I want us to see it in a higher level. Like now, people are building block of flats, and the man is having that big mind. And he does not share with you or allow you to even know so that you will contribute. When it goes on like that, this woman who is in the house with this man is caring for this man by using her strength, even the little money that the woman is having, and the children of the man is also benefiting. And so when it goes on like that, and the woman gives her best in this area, and especially Catholic women. In fact, I recommend Catholic women very much. The way the preaching here, Father, you are here, the way the preaching goes, the Catholic Church, they will tell you, the woman, you have to be content, you have to be, submissive and all that. And this woman becomes that good woman in the house. And at the end of the day, that woman do not even get anything. The sharing gets to the children and others who may benefit. And so my point is that you haven't mentioned consequences. What has been some of the consequences that can curb, when the woman is being cheated in this manner or aspect?
I'm not sure I really get this question.
She's asking how women can protect themselves if they have secretive and maybe manipulative husbands, for lack of a better word. He's putting up extraordinary property somewhere, high-rise buildings you're not aware of. He's keeping all those things secretive, but you are essentially providing substantial contribution by taking care of him at home, but you are none the wiser. And she's asking how women can position themselves in a way as to benefit from their husband's property on their blind side, maybe in the event of death or divorce, how women can benefit.
I believe that's where the substantial contribution comes in. The courts recognize that your contribution cannot always be financial. Your contribution can be non-financial as well. And that includes you being the good wife, you giving him peace of mind at home so that he'll be able to work and make more money, you cooking for him, you taking care of the children in the house, that's a full-time job. So all those will be quantified, and then the judges will decide what percentage of the assets will belong to you. If it's not financial, you cannot really prove that you gave this amount of money. I think Adelaide gave an example earlier on that if you have 10 houses, the judges will look at it and say, per your substantial contribution, you're entitled to 2 houses, and then they will award you 2 houses in the case of a divorce. If not, on the demise of the man interstate, you make sure that the assets don't go into it doesn't go into the inventory of the estate, and then you demand your share of it before the estate is administered. So you don't lose out. It will look as if you are losing out because the man is building high rises all over the place, but you have given him the opportunity to be building those high rises, even though you didn't give him money. You gave him the peace of mind to be able to work nights, 24 hours in order to make that money. So the courts will look at all that and give you your share of the assets at the end of the day. Yes.
Hi.
So that's why that is why it went on appeal.
Yeah.
It's gone on appeal.
You see, times, it's interesting. We live in different times. Whereas before, a case like that will probably be swept under the carpet. We'll probably meet and have discussions about it, but nothing would suffice. Just picture the outcry. Have you noticed how the things have turned around? The women feel empowered to say this is atrocious, this is outrageous, we're not accepting it. Civil rights societies are writing to the Chief Justice. So if you live in an era where women are so empowered, what more do you need to get yourself empowered? Our foremothers, our mothers perhaps were very submissive and didn't talk about all these issues, but this society is not like that. We are still submissive, right? We're still submissive, but there's a difference between being submissive and keeping your eyes open. So you're being submissive, but you know what time it is. Be curious about your husband's life and work. You are not being nosy. He's your husband. Be curious when he's doing things. He's talking about, sometimes wives too, the husband will talk about projects he's doing. We're tired, we just want to go and sleep. This man is going on and on. Open your eyes, sit at the table and listen to the detail, however boring you find it. Be very curious. I'm telling you, you need to be so curious that he believes that you think this is the most fascinating thing on earth. Because
and even,
when you are like that,
if you can visit the project site,
exactly,
visit it. It becomes important.
If he's going, go with him. Get your trainers on. Don't just sit there and be lovely and kept and not know what your husband is doing day to day. You need to go, this wife is so supportive. If you finish building the house and even put in your name, because you're such a wonderful wife, right? So these things, we are submissive, but, eyes wide open, my dear ladies.
For instance, when construction is going on, visit the site. Let the workers know you. It can become evidence. You can say, I supervise the property being built. The workers knew. All these little things.
Little steps. Be submissive, but also be a companion to your husband's ventures. Because then you are not caught unawares. You know where the house is, you've been there, you are just sitting at home being pretty. Please, let's go and pay attention and be curious about what is happening right under our noses, lest we are not caught wanton.
Yes. We need to also empower ourselves in the process. If the man is getting empowered and he's going to school, you also have to draw a plan for yourself. Yeah. Get yourself empowered to the point where you are understanding these conversations. Today, the materials are everywhere. You can even go online and search. Educate yourself and make sure you are at par with him. The fact that you're having children or taking care of the home is no longer a limitation. For the sake of time, I'm sure we can't take all the consents here. Yes, Father will be our last speaker or contributor. But I must say that our speakers are here with us. There are women of St. James. You can always meet them up later and raise your concerns. And I'm sure they'll be more than happy to assist and answer your questions. Father, the way we've been eager to hear what you have to say.
Oh, it's nothing big, but I must say that I've enjoyed this session. And I now understand why I had to rush to this place to witness this. And I wish that we had about 5 men here, at least to see the banter small. This time you have finished us. I was just telling Papa Slide that you have just finished us. But it's good. I really enjoyed it. My first question may not be related to this, but has to do with next of kin. Next of kin. So the person dies and had written my name as the next of kin. But going to retrieve whatever the person had is a difficulty. I don't know what causes the delay and what causes the difficulty. And it gets to a point you have to just give up and allow the thing to go. That is my very first question. And the second one, I think Uncle Sly also asked partially. But I want to just give a scenario where you use that to answer the question. In the case where my dad, God forbid, is dying on a sick bed and calls me, my son, before Jesus died, he said it is finished. Then he gave his last breath. So the last breath my father had was to say, I will all my property to you. Now he called my son, me, the first son. He just said that and he gave his last breath. How am I going to solve this? Is it that I'm finished like my father is finished?
It will be very hard to prove, except the family is willing, they believe you and they are willing to. If doctors were there to witness it, it would be easy. If the doctors and nurses, even that someone can contend that perhaps he was he was under some medicine, or he wasn't of himself. It just opens up for a lot of contention. So it will be hard. That's what I would say. Except nobody is willing to fight you. They believe you, but otherwise it's going to be, if they are ready to fight you, it will be a good fight. It will be a well-drawn fight, yeah. And then I think there was something you asked earlier.
Next of kin. Father, what do you mean in terms of trying to access what as the next of kin? Yeah.
They asked me when I was filling the documents, who in case would have to fall on this one. So
and then
you gave the
insurance
name. You gave the name of the next of kin.
yes, please. And
Right.
maybe my father wrote my name there.
Yes.
Now my father is dead.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that I'm the next of kin. So I walk into the bank and say, my father is dead.
And they didn't.
And I
allow-
have everything to prove that my father is dead. There's always a difficulty getting that. And I have friends who can attest to that fact that there's always a battle. He's not dead. You have to bring obituary. You
Well,
bring
the
all
death certificate and all that was provided.
It's not enough.
yeah.
It's as if it's not enough. I don't know what causes the delay. I don't know. I just wanted to be sure. Okay. That's okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for your engagement. I would just like to take final thoughts from each of our panelists based on everything we have discussed so far today. So, Auntie Adelaide, very briefly, because time is really not on our side, one practical legal advice you'd give to every woman here today.
I would say documentation. Keep your documents. Document your records. I think that now the time has come where the court accepts all sorts of evidence. You documenting stuff and keeping records does not mean you love your husband any less. It just means that you are aware of the realities of life and you want to ensure that if it comes to the worst, you have evidence of your relationship together.
Thank you very much. Documentation. Auntie Sarah, what's that one legal blind spot or mistake that you realize that a lot of women are making on a daily basis, either in respect of their marriages, work, businesses? What's that one mistake that you constantly and consistently see women make? And how can we protect ourselves from making this mistake?
I think knowing our rights and enforcing our rights. Know your rights and enforce your rights in every aspect of your life The Constitution says that we are all equal, male and female. We cannot be discriminated against because of our gender. We have the economic rights, we have all the rights that the men also have. So if you know your rights, it will reflect in your day-to-day activities. At your workplace, you can stand your ground. Don't say you are shying away because you're a woman. No, we are all equal. You cannot be discriminated against. You have to speak your mind. We are all equal. You will have a right to own a property by yourself. You can own a property jointly with others as well. So long as you know your rights and you know what step to take at any given time, it will reflect in your day-to-day activities, and it will not, it will prevent some of the mistakes that we make on daily basis. Thank you.
Oh, you're right. Thank you so much. Bridget, in one sentence, what should a woman here do differently starting from tomorrow?
Starting from even this evening.
Okay.
Please get involved. Okay. Don't just exist. Don't just be there. Get involved. We've said so much, and the crux of the matter is ask questions, write things down, be knowledgeable. Okay. Don't be distracted by the daily things of. Everybody gets busy and you are distracted. Just have knowledge, empower yourself, be well positioned. So please, you've heard the documentation, you've heard the questions, you've heard the getting involved, now social media, so all the problems come to light. Advise yourself. You know, right now that we have discussed your husband's the joint bank account, perhaps then you should have money in your account. So if you are lucky and your husband was getting sick before he died, then you can immediately agree to do a transfer before he dies, so that in that interim time, the needs of the home are taken care of. That's a practical way you can solve it. Because, and sometimes you're not unfortunate, the person doesn't get sick before they die. It's a sudden death. Then you are stranded. So for practical reasons, you might need to have money in your own account so that you can fill that gap. Even though Auntie Sarah is saying accelerate lessons of administration, it's not that fast. It's not that quick. That notice will even be posted on the wall for a number of days before you go back to court. And imagine where there's a hospital bill to be paid or there's school fees and there's no friend you can borrow from. So perhaps we should also start having our own bank accounts, not because we don't think we are one with our husband, but for these practical reasons, so that when there's a gap, at least there's something to fall on. So please, when we leave this place, let's open our minds. Let's be practical. Okay, it's life. It's what it is.
Thank you very much. I think we all deserve a huge round of applause. It's been enlightening, it's been enriching, and it's been very educative. And I'm sure everybody here is leaving with so much information, so much empowerment. We'll begin to do things differently in our homes, in our workplaces, in our relationships. I just want to say thank you all for coming. Thank you to the leadership of St. James Women. Thank you for even creating this platform for us to have these conversations. Thank you to our very distinguished, experienced panelists. Thank you for your time. Thank you for even preparing to come, making time. You're all very, very busy women. Trust me. You would not on a normal day meet Auntie Adelaide or Auntie Sarah or Bridget to have this kind of conversation with them. We are very grateful, and may the good Lord continue to guide your step, enrich you, empower you, and give you all you need to continually empower out other young women like us. We are very grateful to you as well. And even as we leave here, today we've talked about rights, we've talked about what the law says about different things. But I think what is ultimately important is that we are women. We are valued by God. We have been created with different purposes and missions. We all know the invaluable role we play in our families, in our communities, in our societies. Let's live here feeling valued, feeling empowered, ready to change the narrative, Spread the word, whatever you've heard here. If any of your sisters or any women around you is facing any situation that we've touched on here, I believe that you can spread the message and also empower her in your own small way. We are grateful to everybody for your time. I'll invite Father. I don't know if the leadership has a message. Okay, so Father would finally give us the final blessings, and then we can depart to our homes. Thank you all for your time. I wish you a wonderful evening. I am Irene Ali Derry, and I've been your moderator for tonight. Thank you.
So it was 19 minutes past 6 o'clock, so we shall rise and take the Angelus and take the final blessing, then we are good to go. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. The angel of the Lord declared unto Mary, and she conceived of the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Behold the handmaid of the Lord, be done unto me according to thy word. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Pray for us, O most holy Mother of God, that we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ. Let us pray. Pour forth, we beseech thee, O Lord, your grace into our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ, your Son, was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. May his divine assistance always remain with us, and may the souls of the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless and keep you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, and have a good evening.